All right, it is now 30 seconds later, and I'm going to do, we're introducing the ways in which non-chord tones work. Here we go. We're going to do all this today in the E major scale. So I'm going to start with a treble clef. So if I was going to write a song in E major, here we go. E is the first line of the treble clef. E, right there. Elephant's got big dirty feet. Now we got to do whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Let me adjust the camera so we can see it down here. I don't know if I can get everything in the same shot. And sure. All right, cool. So here's E. Whole step, right off the bat. The next note is F. Skip it, land on a black key. That black key is up from F. F is the next letter of the alphabet, so that makes that F sharp is our second note. That is a whole step. Now we need a whole step. Skip the white key, land on the next black key. It has to also be a sharp, because you can't have sharps and flats together. G is the next letter of the alphabet, and it's up from G, or sharp, so that makes it G sharp. Great. Now we need a half step. Half step above G sharp is just A. Great. Now we need a whole step. Skip the black key, land on B. Terrific. Now we need a whole step. Skip C, land on the black key. We know it's got to be sharp, and it's up from C, so it's C sharp. Now we need a whole step. Skip the white key, land on the next black key. We're in sharp world, so it's got to be a sharp. D is here. Up from D is D sharp. Great. And then a half step above D sharp is E. And there's my E major scale. So we have E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E. Number our scale degrees. As we now know, that's super, super important. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1. And I put a little star above 7, and a little star, that's a star, above 4. Right? Those are our two difficult, weird scale degrees. So if I go, there's 7. 7 really, really wants to go to 1, and 4 kind of really wants to go to 3, and then everything's okay. So 4 wants to drop down to 3, and 7 wants to go up to 1. Roman numeral chords, 1, 4, and 5. The 1 chord is going to be 1, 3, and 5, because the 1 chord means every other note starting on 1. So that's going to be E, G sharp, and B. 1, 3, and 5. The 4 chord starts on 4. 4, 6, and 1. A, C sharp, and E. 4, 6, 1. And our 5 chord is going to be 5, 7, and 2. That's B, D sharp, and F sharp, because 2 is F sharp, but it could also be down there. 5, 7, and 2. Okay, so there are chord tones, and then there are non-chord tones. You only have 7 notes to work with. So the 3 notes in the chord are chord tones, and all the other 4 are non-chord tones. And there are rules governing how to use non-chord tones, which is what we're going to do today. So let's say I'm going to do my key signature: F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp. 4 sharps. Great. If I'm starting on my 1 chord, the chord tones are 1, 3, and 5. And there are 3 different ways that you can have non-chord tones if you're following the rules. I'm going to write them down here. First is called a passing tone. And a passing tone is a non-chord tone between, I can't spell, 2 chord tones. So, to do a passing tone, I would have to start on a chord tone. I'm going to start on 3. Notice, 3 is a chord tone, because we're in the 1 chord. So, here's my 1 chord. If I do 3, 4, 5, 4 is a passing tone because it is between 3 and 5. So 3, 4, 5 makes 4 a passing tone. So I'm going to put P there. 4 is not in the chord, but its existence is justified because it is between 3 and 5. I could also do 3, 2, 1. And 2 is not on the chord, but 1 is and 3 is, making 2 a passing tone. And what that sounds like is this. 3, 4, 5, right? And that sounds totally great, because you don't notice that 2, which is not in the chord, gets smoothed over because it's a passing tone. So that's way number 1. Way number 2 is called a neighboring tone. Neighboring tone, like your neighbor. And this is a non-chord tone above or below a chord tone that returns to the same chord tone. And in class, I always talk about, like, I live in this apartment building. I got neighbors upstairs. I currently don't have neighbors downstairs, but there's an apartment down there, and I used to have neighbors down there and probably will again shortly. So here's how a neighboring tone works. Again, you got to start on a chord tone. You can't just, like, pick a note that's not in the chord to start on. That's a no-no. So if I start on scale degree 3 in my 1 chord again, and I'm picking that one because it's the middle note of the chord. So if I start on scale degree 3, which is G sharp, and I go up to 4, and then back down to 3, 3, 4, 3, 4 is an upper neighbor, because I started on 3, I went up to 4, but then I came back home. The chord tone is home. You go to your neighbor's house upstairs, like if I go upstairs and visit my neighbor upstairs and say hi, and then I come back to my house. I don't stay up there. That'd be weird. So this is an upper neighbor. Sounds like this. Right? I can also go visit my lower neighbor. Let's say I'm on scale degree 1. That's a scale degree. Great. It's in the chord. And then I can go down to 7, which would be D sharp. I'll put the sharp in just so we know what's going on. And then I go back up. This is we 1, 7, 1. I'm here. I go down to visit my downstairs neighbors. Right now they're renovating, so I'd be going downstairs to visit the downstairs construction guys. So, but I gotta come back home. So that makes this a lower neighbor. So upper neighbor is when I start on a chord tone, I go up 1 note in the scale, and then I come back home. And this is a lower neighbor. I could do an upper or a lower neighbor from any of the 3 chord tones. So 1, 7, 1 would be a lower neighbor. 1, 2, 1 would be an upper neighbor. 5, 6, 5 would be an upper neighbor, etc. The final way that you can use non-chord tones is called a suspension. I'm going to draw it right on the other side and then flip it back over. A suspension actually happened kind of in the thing that you guys wrote for the extra credit. A suspension is a chord tone, I'm going to write it out, a chord tone that stays when the chord changes, becoming a non-chord tone. Non-chord tone. So a chord tone that stays when a chord changes. So it is a repeated note. A repeated note. And suspensions resolve down. And here's how this would work. So let's say, now we need a chord change. Can't have a suspension if it's just a chord that doesn't change. So let's say we start on our 1 chord, and get a key signature here, right? Start on a 1 chord for a measure, and then we're going to go to our 5 chord. So we're going to go 1 chord, 5 chord. So let's say I do 1, 2, 3, 3, 3. 1, 2, 3, 3, 3. All right. So in my 1 chord, I started on a chord tone. Then I went to a passing tone. 1, 2, 3. Then I went to another chord tone. So I'm going to put a little P here for passing. Then I had 3, and I repeated it, and I repeated it again. Like I've been on 3 for a while, but now 3 is not in the chord. So the only way you can start a measure with a non-chord tone is with a suspension. And the idea is this note 3 is suspended over the bar line into the next chord from the measure before, like you're, dangling out over the edge of a diving board. So it is suspended, and it is unstable. So check out what that sounds like. Chord changed, right? We have one chord, so 1, 2, We kept that note, but it really wants to drop down to a chord tone, and that's how it resolves. So the closest chord tone down from there would be 2, because 2 is in my 5 chord. There's 2, and then whatever, rest. Great. So that is a suspension. Sounds like this one more time. We're staying on 3. Great. So 3 possible ways to use non-chord tones, and you can analyze virtually every melody ever written this way. Pretty much all notes, with some exceptions, are either chord tones, passing tones, neighboring tones, or suspensions. So here is your assignment. I'm going to write a melody in the key of E major right now, and I'm not going to pay all that much attention to it. We're going to go 1 chord. Then we're going to go to the 4 chord. Then we're going to go to the 5 chord. Then we're going to go to the 1 chord. And I'm going to circle 1 note per measure, and you're going to tell me what that is. So I'm going to start on scale degree 5. I'm going to go 5, 4, 3, 3, 5, 4, 3. I'll write in the numbers. 5, 4, 3, 3. Then I want 2, 3, 2. Wrong. That's very, very wrong. Let's go in this measure. If I went 5, 4, 3, 3, let's go. So it's the 4 chord. I was doing the same thing up there. Let's go down to 1, 2. Make that a 2. Make that a 1. And then let's jump up to 6. Sure. So it's 1, 2, 1, 6. So that's chord tone. Then we're going to go 6, 5, 6. No, let's go 5, 5, 5. 5, 5, 6, 5, 5, 5. And then let's do 3, 2, 3, 1. 3, 2, 3, 1. All right, here's my song. And then I'm going to tell you what you're going to do. So my song goes. If I can play the piano, that'd be easy. That was wrong. Let's try it again. 5, 4, 3, 3. Then we have 1, 2, 1, 6. And then here we have. It's always easier if I was a better piano player. So here's what I want you to do. 4 is not in the chord. Is it a neighboring tone, a passing tone, or a suspension? 2 is not in the chord. Is that a neighboring tone, a passing tone, or a suspension? 6 is not in the chord, neighboring tone, passing tone, suspension. And 2 is not in the chord. So I've circled the 4 notes. So this is numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you're going to respond, is that a neighboring tone, passing tone, or suspension for each one of those? I'm going to play it one more time, hopefully better, but this is in E major, and I'm a bad piano player. So here we go. And there it was in all its glory.